nine, eight, seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
Welcome back to Deconstructing DJG. I am DJG, otherwise known as Noelle. We'll be using first names today. I am joined by Rick, David, and Cam, and we are going to test our memories. We have all been out of the church for varying amounts of time, and so we're going to test our Bible knowledge. You guys ready?
More or less.
I'm excited.
So I picked a 20 questions on sins of the Bible. So it's going to be kind of a broad range of sins that it's going to ask you about. So we will go from there.
20 questions.
Ooh.
Let's begin. Question
This
1.
voice.
What are the wages of sin? Is it
Death.
life, death,
B, death.
crown of gold,
Death.
or a crown of thorns?
I feel like it's actually life, but like in the Bible it's death.
You know.
And the wages are death, according to Romans chapter 6, verse 23.
Yeah,
Question 2. Who takes away the sin of the world? Is it the Lamb of God, the Lion of Judah?
Technically, it's all of the above.
Yeah,
So,
that's
wait,
what I was.
So-
what is the Ancient of Days? 'Cause I've never seen that.
So the Ancient of Days, oh my gosh, I want to say that is
That's in
either Daniel?
That's in
Okay.
Daniel, and then it gets reimagined slightly, and there's this weird thing going on in Revelation where the image gets slightly modified.
So
go.
it's from Revelations then.
Yes and no. It's originally from Daniel, but the meaning gets changed in Revelation.
Exactly.
Okay.
But the difference is super subtle, and unless you have them next to each other and are being very careful to pay attention to what's going on, you're going to miss it.
Exactly. But technically, the Bible verse that they are pulling this from is literally the Lamb of God who
This
takes
feels like
away
Bible
the sins
school.
of the world. It's very Bible school. It is.
It's like- You hear the story about the guy who like talks about a squirrel, and the kid's like, it sounds like a squirrel, but it's got to be Jesus.
Yep.
Pretty
That's
much.
really what's going on right now.
And this is actually important because this ties into astrotheology, because the lamb is the one that resets things to the beginning, not the lion.
Oh.
Correct, because
Okay.
it's
Would
the blood of the
technically
lamb
lion-
that blots
So
you
the-
out in the Book of Life.
The lion be what resets it though, because it will kill stuff, and the lamb
No,
is like
no.
life.
The lamb is the first constellation. Is the constellation at the beginning of the circle.
Okay.
Oh.
I thought it was like lamb represents life.
That's it. The lamb has the broken neck in the
Mhm.
constellation. That's all. But it's at the very beginning of the procession of the equinox. The lamb is resetting things.
I would have figured that like technically the lion would reset things because it's what kills you.
See, the
Right.
Lion of Judah is what takes over the world, is the overcoming of other people. The overcoming of sin is the Lamb of God, because it is the blood
Right.
of the Lamb that we are all washed under.
I was just
blah,
like
blah,
taking
blah.
it literally there.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, I
you're
was stuck
kidding.
between A and B.
It's the answer is obviously A. I was just like,
Yeah.
taking it literally. Like the lion should be the reset because it's what ends up killing people more than the lamb.
I mean, it is what
So
does
it's like
the
a
reset
reset
in
stuff.
Narnia, so...
Yeah, that too.
I love the ambience in the background.
Right?
Oh. This feels very hospital to me.
According to John
Yeah.
chapter 1, verse 29. Question 3. How many times did Jesus say you should forgive your brother when he sins against you? Is it
7
1
times
490?
70, 490.
490?
7
I
times-
thought it was 7 times 7.
7 times 70, 490.
Exactly. 490. Yep.
My dumbass really thought it was 7.
Yeah, that was part of it.
490 times. In Matthew 18, verse 22. Question 4. With whom did David commit adultery?
No,
Is
that,
that right?
it was.
Gail?
Exactly. Let's make sure we frame this appropriately. She was not a willing participant of this. She was coerced by the leader of the world. So yeah, Bathsheba is not an adulteress. She is a victim.
Well, that's depressing.
So, no
Sheba
one.
or Athaliah?
Yeah, pretty much none of them.
Does adultery require the other person to be consenting to it?
Yes. Yes.
It does.
I was under the impression that like if there's any like outside the marriage, it's adultery regardless.
Because I think technically, if you're talking about both parties are consenting, then if one or more of the parties is married, it is called adultery. If neither of the parties are married, it is fornication.
It's possible she was a gold digger, and she's like, you know what, that guy's got a lot of money. I'm just like, sure, dude.
Well, it's one of the way I read it is but then she was like, I can work with this.
Oh, it is the king, so it's like you're gonna have like a decent life if you pull that off.
Yeah,
As
it's like,
long as you stay in his good favor.
right. She's like,
Right.
you know what? I was dealt a crappy hand, but I can work with it.
Right.
I
It's
feel
Second
so
Samuel,
bad
chapter 11.
now because when I was like going to church when I was like 14, when me and this one friend of mine would talk about other people, we would give them like biblical nicknames.
Oh no!
And the
Oof.
girl that like her boyfriend cheated on her with, we just started calling her Bathsheba, and we thought it was like the funniest thing. And now I feel terrible.
Does anyone else remember the VeggieTale version of this, where they used rubber duckies instead?
Yes.
There was the VeggieTales version of
Yeah.
this.
There's a
I think
VeggieTales
Larry was the
version of
king.
everything. It's like
Larry
Simpsons.
stole Junior's. Is Junior the little tiny asparagus?
Yes.
So Larry stole Junior's rubber ducky and sent Junior into war, and Junior got
Yep.
PTSD.
Correct.
That is some.
It's
holy
properly
shit.
terrifying.
That is some G-rated nonsense.
Hey, what's that? It's beautiful. What do you think? That I shouldn't have whatever I want? Well... Who could that be? Come in. Thomas! Yeah, Thomas! That's Bethune? It was astounding! There he was, alone at the front line, but he never gave up! He did? He's a war hero, sire! Yes.
I guess funny? I don't know. It's been a while.
Yeah, it was funny when you didn't know any better, you know?
I mean, even now, it's still kind of funny. It's like a dude, they're fighting over rubber duckies. Like, it's kind of funny.
Right. Yes, that is absolutely comical.
And then, seeing an asparagus get PTSD, I guess isn't as funny as now that I think about it.
What is sin? Is it the transgression of the law, the work of
Sure,
the devil,
all of these.
disobeying a priest, or disobeying any religious leader?
So what's
Hey.
interesting is that technically for this quiz, it is A, the transgression of the law.
Really?
Right.
However, it depends on whether you are operating off of the old covenant or the new covenant, because the new covenant is a transgression against God. It is something that separates you from God. It is not necessarily a transgression of a quote-unquote law.
So I was under the impression the new covenant doesn't replace the old covenant, it just kind of adds to it.
It fulfills it, which...
But, like, it doesn't change it, though, because the whole, like, not changing any little bit of it. I think Jesus actually legit said that.
Yeah,
like,
so
the way
not
I
a
was-
jot or a tittle will fall away from the
Yeah.
word of God, right?
The
So-
way I was taught that meant was nothing is gotten rid of.
We got rid of it.
Well, no, well, like, just,
I
like
mean,
you
yes,
have to,
but
you
no.
have to include, you have to take everything from the old. Like, you've got a flower now, but you've got a rose, but you can't get rid of the thorns, which is an
I don't
awful.
get it.
the law is the stem and the thorns, and then the covenant of grace is the flower, basically.
Right. It's still not a great image.
No.
Like, so does the old covenant still apply at all? Because there's the whole, like, mixed fabrics, no eating,
Right.
like, cloven hooved animals, or maybe it's the opposite, but, like, so does that not apply anymore?
So this depends. You have the quote unquote Torah observant or messianic Christians who believe all of that stuff still applies. So they at least
Sure.
pretend to eat kosher, observe the Sabbath on the right day, and they still wear mixed fabrics, they get tattoos, they braid their hair, like they do all sorts of things that are technically against the old covenant. However, they, because they have cherry picked specific ones that they are going to virtue signal about, they say that they're good. And then you have the folks that are on the like hard side, fundamentalist side, and they're going to be very anti anything Jewish because Jewish is an incomplete version of Christianity. And so then you have all of the new laws that are extrapolated out of Pauline epistles and whatnot, and just general themes throughout the Bible, but aren't specifically enumerated underneath the original covenant.
The way it was taught for me was you don't eat things offered to idols, you don't worship other gods, and you keep the commandments pertaining to morality and worship, and those are the essential elements, and other stuff is optional if you want it. If not, that was the way it was explained for me.
Is that from Paul or their interpretation of Paul?
Well, that depends. It's different people interpret Paul differently. There are like 3 different schools of Pauline interpretation.
Well, there's the ones who are like parts of it aren't even written by Paul, and there's the other ones who are like, yeah,
Well,
it's all Paul.
that's a totally different animal. Okay. There are some people who read the letters of Paul as if they are logical tracts. Have you ever read Aristotle or read a philosopher like Aristotle or Cicero or someone along those
Vaguely.
lines?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like A, then B, then C. So then,
They read Paul like that. That everything he's writing is to be understood in logical categories like that, which
Sure.
is messy, let's say. It can lead to some weird readings.
I can imagine.
Then there are the people who say, let's understand the social situation of who he's writing to and adjust and only take what he's saying to them as only matters to them, then it only matters to them. If it has relevance outside of that, or if it's still useful in a parallel situation, then it's useful there, but it's not necessarily broadly applicable if it's not widely relevant stuff.
Right, so they actually look at context kind of deal,
Yeah.
or they just
Yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah, like the third one, which is where they take Paul, and this is the one that I find absolutely baffling, because the first one I can sort of see what they're doing. The second one I really like. The third one, they take Paul teachings, like their confessional position, all right? They use the methods of either 1 or 2 and turn Paul into a teacher of their position.
pretend he was talking to them, more or less.
I think it's called presentism, where
That one.
basically you take your present situation and you
And try and read into it.
push it onto an old text, and so you strip the text of its original context and add your own
That one.
present day
Yeah, it's-
context. Yep.
That's my favorite. It's my
Right?
favorite. I love it. It works great, because I guarantee you, Paul was like really concerned about like social media and stuff.
I
So
really want to know actually what people like Paul would think about people like Nadia and Morgan and Brittany, Dawn and Kelly all doing these like highly stylized and emotionally driven prayers that they put up on Reels and TikTok and whatnot, because there's that whole verse about go and pray in your closet, don't pray on the street corner like the Pharisees.
did
Oh,
Paul say that, or did Jesus say that? I forget.
Jesus said that was Jesus.
That was Jesus. Okay.
but
Okay, so then Paul would have heard that though, right?
No.
Well, actually, Paul lived
had
long
no-
after his death.
Paul only knew about Jesus through reputation, and he never met him. Paul was someone who lived the life of an itinerant preacher, and worked as a tent maker, and would go into the something between a YMCA and a youth hostel and a Toastmaster club, and argue for hours every day.
So he got on Discord.
Yeah.
It says more like 4chan to me.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Wait, Paul really didn't know Jesus?
I was under the impression he was like only like probably 30 or 40 years like prior, and that like,
He had a vision. I would say 20 to 30. He had a vision, and that vision is something that happened in spiritual space, the sense of someone going into transcendent reality in the same way like a shaman or whatever.
Nirvana.
was
Right.
that the experience riding down the road? You get
Yes.
blinded and had to go find the guy.
Correct.
Yes, but also that's the
Okay.
same kind of mental space when do you ever get when you're driving down the road and you just go into a driving trance?
You blink and then like you're 10 miles later down the road.
Yeah.
Yes, it's that type of thing, except with a vision attached.
I've heard this when people were saying like it was it could have been an epileptic fit
Oh yeah.
or something.
Or schizophrenia.
Some sort of altered state of consciousness event that he absolutely read as going into the spiritual realm, and it is entirely possible that he did go into a higher realm, a higher state of reality.
You know,
And-
I mean, he could have found mushrooms on the
I was
side of
just
the
gonna say
road.
that.
Many of the books of the Bible talk about the methods and the ways in which the writer or the protagonist enters into such altered states. The Revelation talks about it. Most of the prophets talk about it, and the Transfiguration is an example of it. So Paul has this event. He sees Jesus in a altered, in this higher reality event. It alters his life, and then he goes to talk to the people who were his faction, and after they see that he's legit because he's saying the right things now and believing the right things now, they don't quite accept him, but they accept that he's seen him and that he's had a real experience. Then Paul takes 10 years off to go in the desert,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is really important. That's not talked about. The 10 years of learning and spiritual development. Skipping that, people always skip that step when they have their conversion experience and they want to go right immediately and do the things. You need 10 years to let the coffee brew.
I mean, I set a
No.
10-minute
And I get
timer on my French press, so that tracks.
10-year timer.
Like when someone has a major conversion, make them take 10 years before they start being a thought leader.
Right?
Yeah.
There is actually a researched phenomena where new converts tend to be the most like evangelical
They're all
for
gung ho.
exactly.
New to it all.
Yep.
They don't
then-
have the doubts. They don't have the experiences. They
Oh
don't
my-
know how cringe they are.
Exactly. They don't have the childhood trauma.
They're
Too.
so
They're not self-aware enough.
No.
Yeah.
okay. There's actually an industry in Catholicism of people converting to Catholicism, writing a book, giving a talk, giving a lecture series, starting a podcast, getting endorsements, and making buco bucks.
Yeah.
Is there the same thing in your tradition?
Evangelical has it so bad.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. Because that's how you get people like Mike Winger and Sean Foyt and Matt Walsh and
It is mostly book deals though.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. It's
Oh.
social media and it's book deals. But then you also have like the Turning Point USA speaking arrangements and
Yeah.
stuff. So
We have Taylor Marshall, who converted from Episcopalianism to Catholicism, and within 5 years is a Sedvancantist who created a international conspiracy to attack the Vatican international meeting of indigenous religious leaders throw their statue of Mary into the Tiber, claim it was an idol, and create and invent out of whole cloth a scandal that was and make money off of it.
Wait, is this guy Catholic?
Jesus.
He is now.
So he did all this and then turned Catholic?
No, he did this as a Catholic.
He turned Catholic, then did all that.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. That
And that-
does not track
Wild.
because I'm last time I checked evangelicals who are like Pope is the Antichrist. So I don't know why a Catholic would do that.
Yeah.
Okay, imagine like this is someone who claims that the seat of Peter is empty. That's what it means.
Yeah.
Imagine having the gall to do that. I want that audacity.
Me too.
I think it's more like delusion.
I think there is a fair amount of actual audacity, like beyond the lack of self-awareness, there is this entitlement to, I have somehow stumbled upon something that no one in the last 2,000 years has. There's a verse that says there is nothing new under the sun, and all of these evangelists and theologians and sycophants, they all think they've discovered something new, when really it's something that's already been written out about by like at least 50 people.
I will say though, this guy sounds pretty new to me.
Who?
Like he sounds pretty special.
No, he's gone full conspiratorial. His first book was actually fairly scholarly, really good. Baby's first introduction to Paul, which honestly for Catholics is really important. Um,
I say Christians in general, yeah.
yeah, Baby's first introduction to Paul. His first few books were like Baby's first introduction to these various topics in the Bible. Then his like fourth or fifth book was this weird conspiracy theory that about the infiltration of the church by bracket. It's admitted to the whole thing on his podcast.
That is so wild.
See, that's the audacity right there.
I love that. I love that for him actually.
You know, living his best life.
Yeah.
So let's
This is
see.
why converts need to spend 10 years in silence.
There we
law.
go.
According
Transgression
to
of the
1 John
law.
chapter 3, verse 4. Which of these sins does God consider to be an abomination?
All right.
As an evangelical, I want to say lust.
Yeah, I was
Even
gonna
though-
say that too. I'm sure it's A, but like
yeah, I think it's A, but I'm pretty sure like growing up it was lust.
it was yeah.
Correct. And
Yes.
here's the fun thing. An abomination, as it is in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, refers to a ritual uncleanness. So it's not even having to do with like a moral this or that, a good or
Oh, you're
evil.
right.
It's just about the ritual problem. That's why it's going to be creating a stone idol, because that is the
When we say-
ritual impurity. Whereas lusting or stealing or that's a moral thing, and so that's not going to be considered an abomination. It's topsy-turvy, wibbly wobbly.
I'm still curious about the difference between a ritual and like a moral because
You're right,
I
actually.
feel like
Stone Idol is probably right, although innocent blood might also be correct.
Because
I feel like A just makes sense. But like
Think of abomination as taboo. Taboo as in something that makes it so that you cannot lust is simply desire. It doesn't mean that you've actually done a thing. This is something that makes where you cannot approach God because you
Correct.
have done something that makes you how the Ark of the Covenant, you touch it and you die. The priests wore these special clothes and so they could go in. Ritual purity means that you can at least go close enough to do sacrifices. Ritual impurity means that you can't.
Is another
Okay.
ritual impurity has to do with niddah, or the menstruation rules. So for a 7-day period after the end of a woman's uncleanness, she is still considered ritualistically impure and is not allowed to go to the temple or the tabernacle. She has
So-
to complete that like absentia phase, and then she is ritually, she dips in the mikveh, then she is ritually pure to actually go back to the temple.
so wouldn't that mean that women are only pure like 2 weeks out of the month?
Basically. And for 40 days
Oh.
after the birth of a boy and 80 days after the birth of a girl.
Girl obviously more unclean, which makes sense. Gotcha.
Obviously.
Obviously. It's gotta be A.
An
Yeah, I'm guessing
abomination
A too.
But I
is
still think
shedding
Oh,
innocent blood.
What?
You find that in
Damn.
Proverbs 6.
Ooh, Proverbs 6:16. Let
I'm
me
a
let me
terrible
grab
Christian.
that.
I'm a
Okay.
terrible Christian. Goddamn.
6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination to him: a proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises with wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among the brethren.
I think that all of us are guilty of the last one.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But I was gonna say like the whole like swift feet to mischief, like that just seems like a normal kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Once again, criminalizing the neurodivergence and normal childness of children.
What was the first sin in the Bible?
Eating some fruit.
I like how it gets reduced like that. It was just eating some fruit, but yet it is this titular
See.
moment. It is
Because sin was at Cain's door.
Interesting. I was gonna. Well, I feel like
interesting.
there's
It could
definitely
be
sin
D.
before that point, and you could argue that adultery would be like thing because they like ate the fruit and then like kind of separated from God, so they committed adultery on God. Maybe. I don't know.
Possibly, yeah.
'Cause,
Lying
like
is
nowadays
certainly
we're
there
married,
because, they ate of the fruit and then lied to God about it.
so I guess eating fruit was still the first one.
Yeah.
So in eating fruit, adultery, then lying. And then murder.
I am impressed though that they did not make this gendered, as in like it was Eve's sin because she tempted Adam with the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because I see that way too often.
And they both ate the fruit. Well, that's why the women are more impure, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Adultery. That was eating some fruit.
Wait,
chapter
what?
3.
Yep. It was the eating, it was violating the rule set by God to not eat the fruit of that specific tree. And so because they ate of that fruit, that was the first sin, which then led to lying because they told God that, they didn't eat of the fruit. And then it leads to adultery because they're having children away from God. And then it leads to murder because, their children end up in the whole murder thing.
Here's an idea. So actually, I think the first sin was lying because God lied about the fruit killing them.
Ooh.
You got a point.
That is a very good point.
So I think that's actually the first sin in the Bible.
Except that God can't sin.
Oh damn, I forgot about that. He's perfect. Gotcha.
Exactly,
No, this was
exactly. We
kind of a
never know
trick
his
question.
nature.
No, this was kind of a trick question because they wrote it out in such like simplistic terms.
Yeah.
It's the Bible school version for like
Mhm.
3-year-olds,
Exactly.
The Old Testament Israelites have to do to be forgiven of sin? Was it give 10% of their crops to the priest, recite the book of the law, pay some money to the temple, or offer an animal sacrifice via a priest and pray for forgiveness?
So, fun fact,
So-
depending on what your sin was, any of those could be what you had to do, or all of the above.
You don't have to do the whole Hail Mary 10 times thing.
There was no Hail Mary. There are names for the prayers. I can never remember what they are, other than Ose Shalom. That's literally the only one I can remember the name of, which is sad, but whatever. So most sins would be forgiven through an animal sacrifice of some sort. However, if you were like a farmer, not a rancher, you would give 10% of your crops. That was just kind of a regular maintenance thing that you did in order to provide sustenance and ability to live of the temple priests and whatnot. Reciting of the book of the law, that is something that happens through the parshas that are done throughout the cycle of the year during temple services. So it could be any of the above, all of the above.
Okay. Moving on.
Yeah. So let's see what the official answer is here.
To offer an animal
Aha!
sacrifice in Leviticus chapter 4, verse 27. Question 9. Where does sin come from?
Ooh.
Oh,
So the heart is wicked and the seat of deceit. But the devil is the author of lies, and God is the one who created all of this, and the devil is a fallen angel. So
Everything that we have and everything else that exists is all his.
yeah,
So
I mean,
everything.
isn't the devil like not even really a thing until like way after the New Testament happened?
Kind of, yeah.
Or I guess even a thing in the New Testament because that's whenever like Satan showed up.
Everything in the world it comes from God. The heaven is his throne and the earth is his footstool. So everything comes from God.
I'll buy that. But I guess the question is like, what's the Bible school answer?
the Bible
That
school
is-
answer is the heart.
I feel
But it
like
could-
growing up, it would be the devil.
Well, it's the devil that influences the heart, I suppose.
The argument that it's not God is really difficult to. Yeah, it's one of the most troublesome arguments. The devil is also an interesting one.
I'm gonna say if you're not Christian, it's the heart. If you are Christian, it's the devil.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm gonna say it's the heart. Catholic answer is the world, the flesh, and the devil. That's three
Really?
separate. Yes, everything that exists in the world, society.
Is not the world God though? Is not God of like part of the world? Basically, everything is built from God.
Depends on if you're a strict predeterminist or not.
Okay.
And in Catholicism, that's not how things go always.
Is there a free will kind of guy?
Yes and
Or
no.
kind of religion?
Yes and no. Every answer in Catholicism is yes and no.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's if I like it, yes. If I don't, no.
Yeah, pretty much.
A lot of terms are left undefined because of basically a compromise that was established to stop different religious orders from excommunicating each other.
How funny.
Oh.
Like the word grace.
Didn't help.
Right.
The word
Couldn't
grace
stop
was left
4,000 Protestant denomination splits.
The word grace was left undefined because of an agreement that was set up because the Dominicans and the Jesuits could not stop excommunicating each other.
How
Hilarious.
funny. I love the
Absolutely
Jesuits
hilarious.
though. They're good people.
I'm not going to explain the difference in their definitions.
We don't have time for that. That's a whole separate video.
I'm
Is it
going to
from
go
God
with the heart for
Or
this
an
one.
angel?
That's the Bible school answer, in my opinion.
Yep.
Yeah.
According to
There.
Marx, what sin is Cain remembered for? Is it
D.
lying?
Oh yeah, totally
No.
the excessive
Weed.
alcohol.
Excessive alcohol.
Absolutely. That's what I would want me remembered by.
Oh my
100%.
god,
Me
you
too.
know.
Of
B.
course,
What was his quote?
Am I my brother's keeper?
Yes.
That goes hard. I like that
Yes.
quote.
It's iconic.
I feel like it's got a lot of baggage tied to it.
You know.
Like it feels like that was actually someone a real person said, and
I just like had to write it down.
yeah, and it got passed on, and it was if someone who was very hurt said this in a moment of anger or a moment of hurt, and it just became a saying.
Yeah. Because I mean
Did they
that if
have-
that isn't a parentified older child, I don't know what is.
They have reading and writing back in like Cain and Abel's time.
Oh, absolutely not.
It was oral
Okay.
tradition for the most part.
Okay. Okay.
question 11. What sin did Noah commit after he began to be a man of the soil?
Is
The-
he the guy who got his daughters?
No.
No.
Okay.
That was Lot, I think.
Very
Yeah,
good.
Lot
Okay.
Lot is the one that
Okay,
was
gotcha.
assaulted by his
All right.
daughters.
Okay. When he was drunk, because this is the correct answer, it says that his sons dishonored him, or his one son dishonored him, and the others covered him.
And he was running
Oh.
around naked on his own accord, and one
And
of the
one son- and
brothers
one-
like covered him
Oh.
up, and one of the brothers was like, "Ha! Look at my drunk dad."
But the language of the dishonoring language is paralleled in Leviticus in such a way that it can either mean that he his mother or he Noah.
Yeah,
What?
God damn.
and this
I
is
don't
why
remember
the
hearing
Bible
about
should
this.
be banned
Yeah,
in
no.
schools.
He cursed his son.
No, I'm a bit sad that this was left out of that one Noah's Ark movie.
I am too. I'm also sad that they didn't have some of the weird medieval plays that influencing it, like where Noah's wife is this troublesome shrew trying to make sure everything's done on time, and Noah's this doddering old man who's making sure that too busy doing religious speeches to do anything, and his sons are useless.
I mean, that sounds like a fundy set of men.
I love that.
Like, she is that character she's not a protagonist, but she has that energy.
So are you talking like this is like an actual like play they did, or are you saying that they should have done this?
These are actual medieval plays that they did.
Oh, so basically the women were the ones who were like just keeping everything together, and the men were basically just like doing their best.
There would be a mixture of high Trinitarian theology and dick jokes in the same line.
That sounds like my kind of thing.
Right?
Wait,
The
what's her
medieval
name?
folks had it right.
What's her name? The bus lady. I was wondering if that's what Brittany meant when she said that her husband was building the bus like Noah and his ark.
Probably.
You know? That
he had like a vision in his head and like, did not worry about any of the practicalities.
Exactly. That's why there's 7 children stuffed into a 6 by 6 foot room,
Oh, dude, that's
all making sense.
That is cruelty right there.
100%.
What sin stopped Moses from leading the children of Israel into the promised land?
Wait, hang on.
Hitting a rock twice, punching
He didn't worship
someone,
the cat.
worshipping
That
a
was his
golden
brother.
calf, or blasphemy.
Oh, yeah.
So he hit the rock.
It's hitting the rock twice, correct?
Wasn't there multiple stories, or the same story was told twice, or did he hit a rock, or did he hit multiple rocks?
There are several incidents with rocks. He was usually told either hit the rock once or command the rock with your voice. You only need to use your vocal authority to perform wonders, or you need to strike once and that will suffice.
Right,
Because
gotcha.
And hitting twice showed doubt.
Of course, because everyone knows if you hit something twice, and like you didn't doubt you doubted the first punch.
Like, this is supposed to be like one hit man type thing.
But hang on. Didn't they say in Zombieland to double tap?
Always double tap.
Yeah, like are we seriously not supposed to do that? Like that feels like way more important than.
But I mean, honestly, that is a matter of trust. Like, I do not trust that one bullet took you down.
It's a matter of statistics. We're saying the Zombieland character would not go to the Promised Land.
That is correct. There is a case to be made that zombies would only exist after the rapture, because it would be after the seals were loosed, and when there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk on earth.
It also happened on the resurrection as well. We had like 500 of those things running around.
That's right.
I don't know. It was there was a bunch of dead people who were running around. When was the battle where he raised an entire like legion of dead soldiers? Was it before?
No, that's an image representing the reunification of Judah and Israel. That's not a literal thing happening.
I'm choosing to interpret that literally.
So it was a vision.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Ezekiel 37. He asked me, "Son of man, can these bones live?" I said, "Sovereign Lord, you alone know." Then he said to me, "Prophesy to these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the Sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life." So now we know where Bethany Beal got her dead, dry bones. Gil, Daniel, all that stuff, it's like 99% vision.
This prophecy stuff is going on in spiritual alternate reality. He's having stuff in vision world. It's stuff that is very much real to him. It is stuff that is going on in the synapses of his brain.
Mm-hmm.
Can we label this as mushroomverse?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is stuff that is...
So I was in the impression that from this, it was a literal experience, not a mushroomverse experience.
Yeah, like this is something that is absolutely something going on in his brain. Most of the stuff going on in the prophets is happening in consensus reality. A lot of the book of Jeremiah is stuff going on in consensus reality.
Sorry to distract you, but on this, I'm looking at the Bible, and there is a title called Prophecy Against Gog, and I find that kind of funny.
Yes, Gog and Magog. Correct.
Again, I think that Gog and Magog are things entirely that exist only in Mushroom World.
I mean, Gog is the mushroomverse of God, right? That's my...
No, Gog and Magog are evil entities or evil countries or something that exist only in Mushroom World.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's going on there is that these entities in Mushroom World are aligning with political powers in the real world and are in the same way that Yahweh is aligning with Israel.
This feels, I don't know, like some right-wing conspiracy shit.
Oh, absolutely. A fun one in that same vein is Daniel 2, where he talks about the giant statue that is made out of different pieces, so like bronze and clay and all this stuff, and it's intended to symbolize existing in that day realms and rulers. But of course, for the folks in Revelation will then reinterpret it to mean whatever happens to be in power at the time that Jesus comes back.
I swear they did a Daniel VeggieTales thing, and I'm trying to find what they used for the prophecy, but I don't know if they did it.
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't think they actually have the prophecy segment.
All right, so let's see the official answer.
And that was hitting a rock twice. In Numbers, chapter 20, verse 11.
I'm going to see Moses punching somebody and it's getting immediately fired.
What is the only sin that can't be forgiven?
Ooh, this
song.
has been the subject of so many debates debates in churches that I have been in, because the blasphemy against the Holy Spirit is never really defined. Like, does it mean that you take God's name in vain? Because I had been told that. Does it mean that you deny that there is a God, so therefore all atheists can never be saved because they have committed blasphemy against the Holy Spirit? Is it that you get to heaven and you're like, nah, it's never really defined. So
the way it's taught for me is final impenitence.
Say what?
Final impenitence, where at the very end, where you're in front of the judgment throne of God, you are where you have the choice between heaven and hell in front of you. At that very moment, saying, "I'm not gonna repent."
So you're in heaven.
You're at the gate. You're at the gate.
You see heaven.
You see heaven.
You see the dude who's like St. Peter or whoever it is, John, I forget who it is. And if you say you get basically kicked out. That's the only thing that counts.
Yeah.
So nothing else matters. As long as you say don't say we get at the gate, you're good.
Right? That part has never.
What's the point?
Exactly. What is the point of living a quote unquote godly life if you just need to make sure that you accept it at the end?
Because the habits you develop and the ways in which you understand and engage with God and the ways in which you will immediately react will shape your response then.
So you're saying you don't really have a choice then, because you just kind of react. If everything I do now determines that, then it's I don't have a choice then, I have a choice now.
Right.
Okay, here's an example, all right? My brother, he does the right thing all the time. It's very annoying. He's a computer programmer, website guy. He was offered a contract for a website for a strip club that would have been very lucrative for him, but because it was against his morals, before they had even finished the offer, he turned it down because it was just that instinctive to him.
So our response then at the very end is more of an instinctive response that has been built through a process of continual choosing of your values and what your knee-jerk reaction is going to be.
Which still basically means there really is no choice in heaven.
Exactly. It definitely takes away some free will.
So actual religion has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. So there is a Gandhi quote that I've always loved. Your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values become your destiny.
It's how you live your life as a totality. No, this is actually why I think that hell is almost empty.
Okay.
Because nobody will refuse that will make the hell choice, or very, very few people.
There are people who would claim
Cake
they
or
do.
death?
Who would-
Cake or
You know, because cake or death, that's a pretty easy question. Anyone can answer that. Cake or death? Cake, please. Very well. Give him cake. Oh, thanks very much. Very nice. You, cake or death? Cake for me too, please. Very well. Give him cake too. We're gonna run out of cake at this rate. You, cake or death? Death, please. No, cake, sorry. You said death first. Death first. No, I meant cake. Oh, all right.
There are some like prominent atheists who claim they would pick hell,
yeah.
but I don't know how true that actually is if given the actual choice.
Christopher Hitchens insists that he would choose hell because God is so evil, and if that's his choice, that's a very heroic choice.
True. And also then it assumes that what we know of hell is actually what hell is. It's entirely possible hell's like a pretty epic place. Who knows? No one really knows what heaven is either, so it's entirely possible heaven could kind of suck too.
Treason. Murdering innocent children.
It's
Yeah,
really
blasphemy
sad
against
that
the Holy
murdering
Spirit.
innocent children isn't the thing, you know?
Are children really innocent?
No.
Well,
It's
yeah.
blasphemy against the Holy Spirit, as written in Matthew chapter 12, verse 31. So don't commit that one. Question 14.
Sounds good.
I'm trying to remember what Aiken did.
Is he the guy who built more buildings to store his stuff in?
Possibly?
I want to say D then. It's just,
Which website is this?
I keep thinking of Asian, it's like a, you know, the Japanese. I think it's like a endearment, like they put Chan at the end of your name. It's like A Chan. Like,
Really that much of a weeb that I
It's
like.
Shin-chan!
messing this up so hard.
four weeps here. What was the guy who sold a field and then didn't give all the money? Was it this dude?
Theft. I'm gonna say C, theft,
Yeah.
because he's connected to the theft connected to the city of Ai, as opposed to the city of Jericho, where they did everything right, procession and everything was holy. Ai was the city where they did everything wrong. And
This was nothing to do with the field then.
no,
Yeah, I think Barnabas was the issue with the field.
you're talking about Jezebel and Namor.
Not Jezebel, because Jezebel's the chick who got eaten by dogs, except for her hands.
No, she did a lot. She's Phoenician, I think.
I thought
Jezebel, I want to say it was like King Ahab's like consort or something, and she got
Oh.
eaten by dogs.
Yeah, she's his wife. That was a political marriage. That
Right.
And honestly, her understanding of royal power, her expectations of that, she did nothing wrong. She was dealing with these insurrectionists, these nonsense people who were
Yeah.
She was trying to enforce royal power and royal authority with this moron king who wasn't gonna. When she was trying to teach him, hey, you're a king, act like it. And she was a queen from a real kingdom, and she wanted a
Sounds like a
real
king.
king.
Anyone else heard the term Jezebel spirit?
yes.
Way too many times. It's really
Same.
annoying.
That
It's
wasn't.
basically when someone like tempts you sexually, they have a Jezebel spirit.
That's not part of her story. Sex is not part of her.
I don't know where it came from, but like that's how I've always heard it used.
Same.
Yeah. Her issue is that she is all about political power.
Yep.
She's not about sex. What in the world is? How are you getting sex out of her story?
It's
That's
what
what I've
the
heard.
evangelicals it's that what did I call it? Presentism,
Right.
something like that. But to where they're taking modern, what they consider a wrong, audacious thing for a woman to do, which is always involving sex.
pretty.
You know, the Jezebel is that, domineering, trying to usurp a man's authority, etc. It technically means to be shameless or impudent. But evangelicals, because everything is about sex,
She is not impudent. She has power.
mm-hmm.
Find
Fowler
where
of
the
Baal,
sex part
she
comes
promises
from.
to kill the prophet Elijah, who flees when hearing her plan.
So apparently the reason why I think it became like a sex thing is so when Jehu was coming after her, she painted her face and adorned herself in queenly garments.
Yeah, because she's a
Oh.
queen. She's wearing queenly
So I
garments.
think then that is like what Jezebel's spirit is, because she's an evil, wicked woman.
She's wearing her royal battle armor, which
Dude.
is a painted face and royal garments.
Okay,
They will
so
complain.
so in Christian lore, she was not dressing as a queen because she was a queen. She was doing it as a matter of manipulation and seduction, so she misled the saints of God into sins of idolatry and sexual immorality. So this is where they start identifying Jezebel with promiscuity, even though it had to do with her actual story.
They say Ahab married the princess and brought to Israel through hundreds of priests of lewd Baal worship. A cult that tended to destroy manhood and drag womanhood into shame.
Wow.
It was lewd Baal worship. I thought you just like sacrificed cows the same way the Israelites did.
Well, you have to keep in mind a lot of the religions around the Israelites had temple prostitutes, and so
Male and
yeah.
Was this like a
Sometimes
their version
in
of
drag.
like social like nuts or something, or was it like there was like a coveted job?
Women of a certain age, I'm not sure if it was social standing, but a lot of women would go to the temple for a couple of years or a couple of months. I'm not really sure offhand. Maybe it's just a couple of months until they'd had X number of a man or a woman or event, a worship event. Then they would go and they'd be marriageable because they had been
exactly.
trained in the arts.
Yep. So
Being
it's
sexual.
kind of like the
Bene Gesserit?
Bene Gesserit.
I have-
There we go.
Like,
It's
now,
very
this
much
was
a Bene
guys and
Gesserit
girls.
thing. Yeah.
I
But it
haven't
was
watched it,
guys
so I don't
and
know.
girls. Yeah.
We're saying
So
worship service. We mean like obviously praising the Lord, of course, right?
yeah.
Yep.
So
Got it.
Herodotus, an early philosopher, talked about the Babylonian customs around this. He said the foulest Babylonian custom is that which compels every woman of the land to sit in the temple of Aphrodite and have intercourse with some stranger at least once in her life. Many women who are rich and proud and disdain to mingle with the rest drive to the temple in covered carriages drawn by teams and stand there with a great retinue of attendants. But most sit down in the sacred plot of Aphrodite with crowns of cord on their heads, and there is a great multitude of women coming and going. So it was like a thing that like everybody went and did this sacred sexual rite.
So this is just for women, though.
There
Here we
were
go.
there were places that had it where it was open to other gender expressions.
Yes.
And,
Thinking specifically of Jezebel, in Phoenicia, their sacred prostitution was both male and female. It was dedicated to either Astarte, the woman, or Adonis, the man, sometimes performed as a festival or social rite. But it was in a number of cities where they had these temples where this would go down.
Crazy.
Right? I'm actually looking at archaeological digs that have unearthed these temples with small rooms inside of them. It very much feels like a kink club or a sex club.
Swingers club. Goddamn.
Yeah, swingers club. That's really what it feels like.
Sorry,
So Aiken, after our little Jezebel rabbit trail, I'm trying so hard not to like look up any of these answers until after but Aiken, I do not remember what the hell he did.
Either.
I googled it just now, and it's apparently when they first scouted out Canaan or the Promised Land. When they came back, apparently Aiken was one of the guys who took stuff from the Promised Land and got them all like wiped out. The scouts.
Interesting. Okay. So let's see what the official answer is.
I've never heard of him before that point.
Mr. Aiken was a thief.
Hey,
Joshua,
good job.
Chapter 7, verse 1.
Google.
All right.
Google represent.
Question 15. What is the root of all kinds of evil?
Dude, actually.
money.
Ooh.
Oh no, B, love of money.
Yeah, but like you have to have money to love it, you know?
No, you
But
don't.
the heart is
Like if money didn't
wicked.
exist, you couldn't love it. And the heart is the part that loves. So it sounds like the heart is the real evil.
It could be love of money, depending on exactly which verse they're pulling this from, but the heart would absolutely be a valid option.
I honestly though I want to say pride though, because that feels like just a very like I don't know Bible school thing to have. I'm going to C.
I'm gonna go with D.
The suspense, man.
It's the love of money.
Oh,
Damn it.
Damn it.
1 Timothy chapter
I
6,
still think the heart
verse
makes more
10.
sense.
Question 16. What was the first temptation of Christ? Was it to kill
Ooh.
Judas? To become king of the world immediately?
A
To
is
jump
funny,
off
I
the
think.
temple and be saved by an
It
angel?
really is.
Or to turn a stone into bread?
C.
Wouldn't
I-
it technically be some like puberty thing?
wasn't it turning the stone into
You have
bread?
a point.
Good old
Like-
Catholic versus Protestant.
Apparently, we're taught about the Bible in a very different way, and like I could not tell you chapter and verse of anything.
See, that's very
Parallels-
different. Evangelicals are like, nah, man, I could tell you chapter and verse.
Like,
I mean, the
but
only thing I know
parallels-
is like the one psalm where it's like, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall feel no evil, for thou art with me." It's the only thing I know. I don't even know what verse or chapter that is, but it's the only like verse I know.
Psalms 23.
All right,
Yeah,
there we go.
parallels and story elements and themes and weird details. Absolutely, I've got you.
So I think it comes down to whether you are looking at the Bible as this living, breathing moral document, or are you seeing it more as a
Historical thing.
exactly a historical document, a literary work, etc.? Are you looking more for story themes, trends, etc., or are you looking for very specific verbiage that you can then pull out of context and hammer people on the head with?
I like that last one.
All right, so let's see. Give me
I feel
turn
like-
a
I think
stone
you're
into
right,
bread. Big
I feel
money,
like
big
that
money,
makes
no
sense.
whammy.
Jesus
Yes,
was first tempted to turn a stone into bread.
Ah.
Chapter 4, question 17. What sin did Gehazi commit?
I have
Gehazi?
no idea who that
Lust.
is.
What?
Fornication.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
So
Gehazi is the better word, disciples of Elijah or Elisha. I want to say
this feels like a
greed.
test that I
Oh,
just didn't study for. I haven't seen fornication yet, so that's what I want to go with.
Right?
I'm going with envy.
It's
Oh my God.
Naaman and Gehazi underneath Elisha.
he cheated someone. He wanted money for a miracle.
Oh, so definitely greed
Wait.
then. A servant
This is
of the prophet
fornication.
Elisha, Gehazi enjoyed a position of power but was ultimately corrupt, misusing his
Oh.
authority to treat Naaman the Syrian, a general afflicted with leprosy. As punishment, Elisha cursed Gehazi, transferring Naaman's leprosy to him and his descendants forever.
Damn.
Oh.
In rabbinic literature, Gehazi is identified as one of the 4 commoners who forfeited his share in the afterlife because of his wickedness. He is also the subject of a
Damn.
poem by Rudyard Kipling.
They do not mess around back then. God damn.
No.
You know, the Black Israelites.
Oh,
thing.
Black Hebrew Israelites, yes.
Is that a Mormon thing?
No.
No,
It's a
It's a-
messianic
It was
thing.
too.
one of their claims is that ancient Hebrews were black. Okay.
Right.
And that the white race are the descendants of Gehazi.
Huh?
I've never heard that one before.
What? Wait. So we're saying the guy who basically got cursed with leprosy for his entire descendants, we're all descended from that? At least the white people are?
Yeah. It's kind of the opposite of the
Of
Mormons.
the Mormon, yeah.
Because the idea is that the original, from the time of Adam, if people were dark skinned, then the aberration is whiteness, and that came from a divine curse.
Last I checked, I don't have leprosy though.
Yeah, right?
Well,
We have spiritual leprosy. Come on, it's
Oh,
metaphorical.
Okay.
Leprosy
I mean-
of the spirit.
I buy it.
All right, so Judas.
What did Judas get in return for the betrayal of Jesus? Oh,
30
Or a
pieces
gold
of silver
crown.
for a pound of flesh.
He bought a field with it, right?
Yes, he did. And then
Then he
he ended up
suicided in the
hanging.
30.
or disemboweling.
Well, what I've heard is that he was hanging and then fell and then disemboweled. So like technically both are correct.
Right.
That's real
No,
difficult to pull off.
It is. I mean,
Yes,
the
but this is
samurai did
godlike
really. What's that thing where they ritually cut their stomachs out if they are like shamed?
Seppuku?
Seppuku. Yes.
You have to do a square, and it's more honor.
I could not pull that off.
You only get
Eat,
one
hear,
shot at it.
repeat.
That's a lot of pressure.
In Matthew 26, verse 15.
High expectations,
Question
you
9.
know.
hmm
According to Peter, what covers a multitude of sins?
So
I read
this.
money as monkey, and I was like, what the fuck?
I just did too. No, while you were saying that, I looked up at the screen and then I just saw monkey there.
Well, it's right below animal sacrifice, so you know.
Money will
Okay.
absolutely cover a lot of sins.
You
That
gotta be
is true.
you gotta be Catholic in the is it the 1400s?
Or if you're just a billionaire today who is a philanthropist.
Yeah.
That works too.
What's funny though is the verse that they're talking about here is actually one of my favorite verses to quote to people who say that because they are a Christian, they need to show love by pointing out the sin in other people. And I'm like, yeah, but love covers a multitude of sins. And they're like, well, but not like that.
I can't be an asshole with that one.
Yeah, and get a point. I choose to cherry pick the opposite of this.
But yeah, it is obviously love.
I still
It's
think monkey makes
Yeah.
sense.
I agree.
If a reading of scripture does not produce more love in the world, it's invalid.
Correct.
I'll buy it.
Final
No.
question.
Question 20.
What?
What sin did the children of Israel commit whilst Moses was up on Mount Sinai?
I love the idea of carved an idol out of gopher wood. Like, yes, we all
They
know
pulled in the
gopher
Noah
wood
in.
is a thing. They got to shoehorn that Noahic little bit there.
Which brings up the question. I'm pretty sure gopher trees aren't very big. Like, how you build on a football-sized boat out of like small trees?
You know, I think they would point to the beaver who takes lots of little sticks and twigs and builds a whole goddamn dam.
Yeah, but like they're using mud and gravity. So like I don't see gravity helping you with this
No.
boat. You can't put the boat on the ground. That's like the entire point of the boat.
The structural issues that exist with the blueprints given for the Ark are definitely on par with Ocean Gate.
Is everyone here aware of the Ark experience?
Yes, very.
I'm aware of its existence.
Have you
I-
have you heard that it flooded?
Yes,
I love that for them.
That's
multiple
hilarious.
times.
It fucking flooded.
Not only was it flooded, but they submitted an insurance claim for the flood
Oh
because
my
their
God.
Ark could not handle the flood.
That's just hilarious.
Praise
Yeah.
God.
So, as just kind of a general overview, how did you define sin for yourself while you were still in the church? And what would you call sin now that you are outside of the church? Like, is there a moral equivalent outside of the church to sin?
I'm gonna say sin was never really defined. It was just this nebulous thing that everyone did, but lust and being gay was the worst ones. Now I don't know. It is what it is.
It
I
was,
would really say
basic-
sin.
it was basically the same for me. Only like included in that list was like disobeying my grandfather in any way. That was also sin.
True.
But aside from that, it was just some like vague nebulous concept that like nobody. I didn't even feel like the people around me understood. To be honest, it was just whatever like my grandfather decided was bad.
If you felt distance from God, you did it, and that's the only
Yeah.
way to know you did it or not. And obviously, that's what you felt, because I don't really think there was much of a God there to listen to you.
For me, everything felt like a sin because not only were there specific actions like being gay, committing adultery, stealing, murdering, etc., that would be considered a sin, but if you were to say, take too much pride in a talent that God gave you, that was also sin. If you were to feel very accomplished in something, that was sin because you were resting on your own accomplishment and not God. And, everything had a sin component to it. Like, there was no way that you could do anything at all, even a good thing, without being concerned that somehow sin was attached to it.
Fun.
That is why I have religious OCD.
Pokemon is the sun too.
For me, there were several different ways it was explained. One was, if it is not explicitly forbidden, it is permitted.
Assassin's Creed type shit.
Yes. I don't know what Assassin's Creed is, but I'm going to assume you're being accurate. All right. Second is sin lists. Like against the first commandment, there are such and such sins. Against the second commandment, there are fairly extensive lists about what those are. Most of which never crossed my mind. A lot of them, however, were the most onerous. You cannot avoid them. Under the heading of murder, or thou shalt not kill, was anger.
What? So like murder and anger are the same thing?
No,
it's sort of
like it's under the heading, like a species of saying cruel words. Being when you say cruel things to someone, you are intending to hurt them, and the intent and the seriousness of it under the same heading as thou shalt not kill. You have the same intent of hurting their spirits.
Why did heading matter? Like the type of sin matter?
Different theologians categorize it differently. Different vices, some according to the commandments. I first learned them according to the commandments. Later I learned them according to the vices or whatever. But when you start off with commandment or organization versus vice organization or whatever, you wind up with this idea that bad words are basically like fourth degree murder. Like you have the super version of the sin, or every variation is a lesser version of it, or an alternate version, or a cousin of it.
So is the expression like all sin is equal not apply to this?
Absolutely not. Like in Catholicism, it's there are venial sins, imperfections.
Jesus saying like if you looked at a woman with lust in her heart, you committed adultery. How does that play into this? Because it feels like they're basically ignoring that entirely and saying, hey, as long as you don't do anything about the thought, it's fine.
It depends on the thought, because you've got Matthew 5 that says, you have heard that it was said to the ancients, do not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with his brother will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to his brother, Raka, will be subject to the Sanhedrin. But anyone who says, you fool, will be subject to the fire of hell.
That's putting on a stricter liability there, which is why Origen castrated himself when he started having lustful thoughts.
The fuck?
Yeah, he took that cut your right hand off really literally.
Oh my
God. And after that, he was like, I'm not doing literalism anymore. And
that would definitely make you not want to be a literalist anymore.
Right? Mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made, dicks were lost.
So,
when is it not a metaphor and when is it a metaphor? I don't understand.
It's like calculus. You could take it metaphor, you could take it literal. It really, depends on the context and what you're trying to prove.
There's the rich man through an eye of a needle or camel through a needle and all that stuff, and like that's a metaphor apparently, not literal.
Praise God, because the rich men in that boat are able to pass through the eye of a needle.
I know I have heard people that are within the prosperity gospel circles will try and explain away that verse and say that it didn't really mean a camel. It was actually talking about a particular type of rope, and rope could pass through the eye of a needle. And I'm like, I guess?
I heard they were talking about a specific small gate that was difficult to get camels through. That's what I've heard.
That's another one.
But then that's a metaphorical thing, not a literal thing.
The idea of literal in the Bible is something that is, you have to take it not as literal in the way we think of in a modern history book. Think of it more as a very metaphor-heavy text by someone who's super in a high context culture. They're trying to mix dream world and consensus reality. They're not always sure which one they're talking about.
Yeah.
I'll have you know, Bible is completely literal. Earth was made in 6,000 years.
There is a thing called the Quadriga, which is a basically 4-part scriptural interpretation. There is a Latin rhyme that was used as a mnemonic device in the Middle Ages.
This is how I'm taught to. I'm taught to read it.
Litera gesta docet, quid credis allegoria, moralis quid egas, quo tendas anagogia. So the literal teaches what God and our ancestors did. The allegory is where our faith and belief is hid. The moral meaning gives us the rule of daily life. The anagogy shows us where we end our strife. And Origen was very...
He created this.
Yeah.
I was taught how to read the Bible.
Like metaphorically, kind of, sort of, but not always.
It's more allegorical than metaphorical, if that makes sense.
Allegorical which means like stories of, but not
Yes.
like a direct translation.
Where every story is always about Jesus somehow. Crossing the Red Sea is about baptism. The water is the chaos, is where the chaos evil lives and is.
Couldn't I just like basically do that for literally anything?
Yes, but there's a deep method to it that he
Yes.
uses that is actually very impressive.
Okay.
Because you've got the literal interpretation, so the explanation of the meaning of events for historical purposes, right? Then you have the
Sure.
allegorical, which is connecting the events of the Old Testament with the New Testament, creating a holistic ideology out of the two parts, even though the two parts are very different. Then
Are the
you
Gospels allegorical?
they are part of the allegory because they are the second half or the fulfillment of the first
Think
half.
of it as a diptych,
What's a diptych?
a two-part painting, or where one half of that are connected by a hinge.
So
Oh,
a
so it's-
diptych
interesting.
looks like this. So you've got two pieces that are there. It is also similar to a triptych. Same idea, but it's 3 parts. They are very cool. That's part of why I liked them so much in humanities. But they were like a 3-part story. And so you would have, almost like a progression of panels in a comic, You would have these 3 pieces of the story. And typically it was a transition of the story through time.
But not always.
Not
It's kinda
always.
like a stained glass window in a sense.
Like the Garden of Earthly Delights is not something going on over time. It's
No.
something else.
Yeah. Yeah, the Garden of Earthly Delights, well, really anything by Bosch is it's an onion. It's layers and layers and layers of meaning.
ogre.
Now, the interesting part that I think gets missed in evangelical circles is the anagogic, because they skip straight to and solely to eschatology. Anagogic is dealing with future events in Christian history, as well as heaven, purgatory, hell, last judgment, general resurrection, second advent of Christ, prophecies, etc. But in evangelical circles, it gets so stuck on this whole like preparing for the rapture that's all they ever see when it comes to anagogic. And so everything ends up pointing at Revelations, even if it doesn't.
And one thing that's important is if you get the literal wrong, everything else is going to be garbage.
100%.
So you're telling me the Earth is not 6,000 years old?
Correct. But a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like the day in the presence of the Lord. So
Whatever. Which is why
man.
Origen was a text critical scholar.
yes.
That's like
And-
your opinion, man.
So,
I will go ahead and wrap us up for a close. Big shout out to David and Cam who joined us today. I think doing this as a larger panel made it way more interesting. Certainly more fun for me personally. But as always, if you enjoy the channel, make sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and we always love discussion in the comments. So thanks so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Mom.